This is an introduction to the Sony PRS-300 e-reader. It's quite a nice unit, fits nicely in the palm of the hand, very easy to manage. So you just turn on the book using this switch, so you can see that's it, blank. I flick the switch, comes on pretty quickly, and you can see how easy it is to read even though there's a bit of glare from the light above. It also works in broad daylight perfectly. This is the home screen, which can be accessed at any point by pressing this home button. And you can see that I can continue reading, which is where I had been reading already, and it remembers that. I can look at books by title and author, which you might think would be useful, but in actual fact for the ministry, because it's grouped together so logically into a series, the most useful thing is collections, and then bookmarks. Once I demonstrate bookmarks to you, you'll see how that's useful too. So if I'm going to go straight into collections, there's a series of buttons down the side here which are very tactile and easy to use and correspond with the numbers on the side of the screen. So for collections I'm going to press 5, and that shows me the authors that I've got loaded. I've got everyone loaded from Mr. Sony, Mr. Raven, Mr. Coates and Mr. Taylor. Mr. Darby, there's only one volume and it's really only a trial. It's not very good at the moment. But if I go straight into Mr. Coates by clicking 1 at the top there, I then see all the volumes of Mr. Coates, and you'll notice that down the left hand side there's a volume number and then the title, and you can see where it doesn't quite fit in. It does its best to give you the beginning and the end of the title. This button here allows me to go, I can go down the way a volume at a time, or I can page, and this is the same button I use when I'm reading, to the next page. So that flips over to the page and I can scroll to the ones I'm interested in. If I just go back to the beginning again, and I'll go into the outline of Genesis by clicking button 1. So here I have the options when I'm in a book, or as I would call it, a volume for our language. We can just begin, so I could do that. I could go click 2 here, and that just takes me to the volume, and I can see the author's name, title of the volume, photograph of the author, which I included just for interest. And I can go to the next page and start reading, and here I see the article name, which in this case is the chapters of Genesis. That's often the case with Mr. Coates. Then a scripture in italics, and then the text itself. I just press the next button like that, and it moves through quite nicely. Now you'll notice the way the screen flashes. At first, when I was in one of the shops trying it myself, I thought there was something wrong with the reader. But in actual fact, it goes black like that and then resets the screen, and that's the way that the electronic ink works. It's clever because it's not constantly powered. It's only powered when it makes a change. So that means that the battery life lasts for, between 4,000 and 8,000 page turns, which is plenty of reading, several weeks worth of reading before it needs charged. So that's what it's doing. It's a bit disconcerting to start with, but you very, very quickly, within a few minutes, get used to it. If at any point I'm interested in what I'm reading and I want to remember it, I can click the bookmark button here, and you'll see that a little bookmark icon flashes on, and that's that page bookmarked. If I go to the next one, you'll see it's off, and here it appears again. So that's me reading Mr. Coates. I can press the home icon, and now what you possibly can see is under all bookmarks it says 2 bookmarks. So at any point in time I can press key 6 here and dive into the bookmarks and see I've got a couple saved. If I go back home again, I want to address Alistair's point about reading 2 books simultaneously. So if I go into collections, and this time I'll look at Mr. Taylor, button 5, and I'm going to scroll through to find volume 50. Mr. Taylor's volumes are all just numbered, volume and then the number. but volume 50, you can see I've named divine names because of the series of readings. So when I get into that volume, I can do the same thing again. This time I'm going to show you something slightly different. Instead of just starting reading, I'm going to click Table of Contents number 5. And that just shows me, just as you would expect, the list of articles, and I can go down one at a time that way, perhaps as I'm thinking about it. It's quite nice to just sort of click. Or if I know what I'm looking for, I can page through a page at a time. So there's the series of divine names readings. At the end there's that very interesting address about names of divine persons. So let's click on 3 to read that. Now because it's an address, there's no initials, just as we saw with Mr. Coates. There's a title, no scripture because Mr. Taylor refers to a lot of scriptures in the article itself. I can go back that way. Let's have a little look at a reading though. So if I just go right all the way back to the home screen, and I'm going to dive into, this time, collections, Mr. Stoney. Still bearing in mind I want to show you Alistair's Point. So let's pick volume 1 of Mr. Stoney. Now this is the first time that I've looked at this particular article, and so you'll notice the egg timer, the arrow icons, it's building a cache. It does this the first time it opens the volume. It doesn't take too long. It's just because of the format that I've used. The slightly newer, up-to-date format doesn't take this long, which I hope to upgrade to pretty quickly. So that's it open. I'm going to go into Table of Contents again, and this is me looking through volume 1 of Mr. Stoney. So I'm just going to select the Circle of Truth. Now this is interesting because that's a series, the Circle of Truth, and then on the second page we get the actual article itself. I think what I was going to show you was a reading. Let's bookmark that one, and I'll show you Alistair's Point. So back to the home screen again, and all bookmarks this time I'm going to use. So what Alistair was saying was, how can I go quickly between what Mr. Taylor says and what Mr. Coates says and Mr. Stoney says. So I'm going to click on number 1, and that's a bookmark that I've saved. It's busy recaching that book. I suspect this may happen, this may begin to happen quite a lot, and this is why I want to switch to the new volume. In theory, it should only happen once, but I think it's happening more often than that. So that's me looking there at a particular page. I'm reading it, I then go back to the push the back button, and I'm back here looking at my bookmarks again, so I can click on button 3, and there I am looking at the text. Back again, button 1. So it's relatively easy to compare between two volumes. And I hope that gives you a sort of whistle-stop tour of the reader and how it's being configured with the volumes, in anticipation of me handing it over. So I hope that was of some interest.